Hello and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. I'm reading The Wheel of Time for the first time and sharing the experience with you. This is One Good Turn, The Eye of the World, and today we are covering Chapter 28! So before I started reading the chapter, I took a quick look at the page count, and I determined that this chapter is short enough that I could do it as a blind read. Hooray! Footprints in Air. Nynaeve stared in wonder at what lay ahead down the river, the white bridge gleaming in the sun with a milky glow. Cool. Okay, yeah, so there's a lot. Nynaeve POV, yay. That this happens chronologically after what happened with Rand and Matt and Tom. I presume this happens after that. I'm hoping this means we're gonna get an answer as to whether or not Tom is okay. So help me, if he is not okay, I'm gonna be pissed. Yeah. Another legend, she thought, glancing at the warder and the Aes Sedai riding just ahead of her. Another legend, and they don't even seem to notice. She resolved not to stare where they could see. They'll laugh if they see me gaping like a country bumpkin. The three rode on silently toward the fabled white bridge. So she is still very much trying to seem more worldly than she is. She's very concerned with Moiraine and Lan's opinion of her. Or most people's opinion of her, I suppose. Since that morning after Shadar Logoth, when she had found Moiraine and Lan on the bank of the Arenal, there had been little in the way of real conversation between her and the Aes Sedai. There had been talk, of course, but nothing of substance as Nynaeve saw it. And in all that time, did you ask her what the Dark One wants with them? Moraine's attempts to talk her into going to Tar Valon, for instance. Tar Valon. She would go there if need be and take their training, but not for the reasons the Aes Sedai thought. If Moiraine had brought harm to Egwene and the boys. Wow, there's a lot there. So, she's willing to take their training. That seems a lot more committed to getting involved with the Aes Sedai than I think she had been before, which is really interesting. And it seems it is about getting back at them, to use the power against them, should harm come to the rest of the group. Interesting. Sometimes, against her will, Nynaeve had found herself thinking of what a wisdom could do with the one power, of what she could do. Ooh, that one sentence alone does suggest an interest in power. Okay. Whenever she realized what was in her head, though, a flash of anger burned it out. The power was a filthy thing. She would have nothing to do with it, unless she had to. Okay. The cursed woman only wanted to talk about taking her to Tar Valon for training. Moiraine would not tell her anything. It was not as if she wanted to know so much. How do you mean to find them? She remembered demanding. As I have told you, Moiraine replied without bothering to look back at her. I will know when I am close to the two who have lost their coins. It was not the first time Nynaeve had asked, but the Aes Sedai's voice was like a still pond that refused to ripple no matter how many stones Nynaeve threw. It made the wisdom's blood boil every time she was exposed to it. Yeah, I don't like non-answers, and there is... Look, the whole Shadar Logoth situation could have been made not as bad had they been more open with the group about the dangers and what those specific dangers could be. I'm very upset with Moiraine for not divulging more, and it only serves to make her seem less trustworthy. Moiraine went on as if she could not feel Nynaeve's eyes on her back. Nynaeve knew she must be able to, she was staring so hard. The longer it takes, the closer I must come, but I will know. As for the one who still has his token, so long as he has it in his possession, I can follow him across half the world if need be. And then, what do you plan when you've found them, Aes Sedai? She did not for a minute believe the Aes Sedai would be so intent on finding them if she did not have plans. Tar Valon, wisdom. Tar Valon, that's all you ever say, and I am becoming... Part of the training you will receive in Tar Valon, wisdom, will teach you to control your temper. Screw you, Moiraine. You are baiting her. You are not answering her questions. Has she even agreed to training? I know she said she would, in the pros, take it if it meant being able to use it against them if harm comes to her friends, but... Yeah, I'm coming down hard on Team Nynaeve right now. I think that really speaks to Jordan's prowess and getting me into her POV. You can do nothing with the One Power when emotion rules your mind. Nynaeve opened her mouth, but the Aes Sedai went right on. Lan, I must speak with you a moment. I mean, but also, fair, she does have a hot temper. Like, Moraine's not wrong on that. I will give her that. The two put their heads together, and Nynaeve was left with a sullen glower that she hated every time she realized it was on her face. It came too often as the Aes Sedai deftly turned her questions off onto another subject, slid easily by her conversational traps, or ignored her shouts until they ended in silence. The scowl made her feel like a girl who had been caught acting the fool by someone in the women's circle. Yeah, but she's being gaslit. It's not entirely her fault. That was a feeling Nynaeve was not used to, and the calm smile on Moraine's face only made it worse. If only there was some way to get rid of the woman. Lan would be better by himself. A warder should be able to handle what was needed, she told herself hastily, feeling a sudden flush. No other reason, but one meant the other. Is she considering killing Moraine? Because that does take things way too far for me. I don't think Moraine has done anything to merit that. Yet. Possible, eventually, but not yet. And yet Lan made her even more furious than Moraine. She could not understand how he managed to get under her skin so easily. He rarely said anything, sometimes not a dozen words in a day, and he never took part in any of the discussions with Moraine. He was often apart from the two women, scouting the land, but even when he was there, he kept a little to one side, watching them as if watching a duel. Nynaeve wished he would stop. If it was a duel, she had not managed to score once, and Moraine did not even seem to realize she was in a fight. Nynaeve could have done without his cool blue eyes, without even a silent audience. I think there's probably going to be more stuff going on when and if we learn specifically about the relationship between a warder and an Aes Sedai, particularly if Nynaeve, as someone who could possibly become an Aes Sedai, potentially being paired with a warder. That had been the way of their journey, for the most part. Quiet except when her temper got the best of her, and sometimes when she shouted, the sound of her voice seemed to crash in the silence like breaking glass. The land itself was quiet, as if the world were pausing to catch its breath. The wind moaned in the trees, but all else was still. The wind seemed distant, too, even when it was cutting through the cloak on her back. At first, the stillness was restful after everything that had happened. It seemed as if she had not known a moment of quiet since before winter night. By the end of the first day alone with the Aes Sedai and the warder, though, she was looking over her shoulder and fidgeting in her saddle as if she had an itch in the middle of her back where she could not reach. The silence seemed like crystal, doomed to shatter, and waiting for the first crack put her teeth on edge. Yeah, so they're all scarred in varying degrees. All of the characters since Shadar Logoth have had the immense stress of nonstop being chased, and moments of levity, and moments of imparted wisdom. So we'll see if Nynaeve gets a little bit of levity, a moment of levity in this particular chapter. I doubt it. But I've also noticed this pattern, particularly with the montage chapters of Jordan will start off the chapter with, they arrived at their destination, to a point. And then he'll go back in time a little bit and be like, on day 1, this happened. On day 2, this happened. On day 3, this happened. It's a very interesting way of doing things, I think. It weighed on Moraine and Lan too, as outwardly unperturbable as they were. She soon realized that beneath their calm surfaces, hour by hour they wound tighter and tighter, like clock springs being forced to the breaking point. Moraine seemed to listen to things that were not there, and what she heard put a crease in her forehead. Lan watched the forest and the rivers as if the leafless trees and wide slow water carried the signs of traps and ambushes waiting ahead. Yeah, so they're communing with something. They're tapping into the One Power there, almost certainly. Part of her was glad that she was not the only one who apprehended that poised on the brink feel to the world, but if it affected them, it was real, and another part of her wanted nothing so much as for it to be just her imagination. Something of it tickled the corners of her mind, as when she listened to the wind, but now she knew that that had to do with the One Power, and she could not bring herself to embrace those ripples at the edge of thought. "It is nothing," Lan said quietly when she asked. What did she ask? Did I miss something? I guess she asked about that feeling that was just described. Am I doing a dumb? It is nothing, Lan said quietly when she asked. He did not look at her while he spoke. His eyes never ceased their scanning. Then, contradicting what he had just said, he added, "You should go back to your 2 rivers when we reach Whitebridge and the Camelin Road. It's too dangerous here. Nothing will try to stop you going back, though." It was the longest speech he had made all that day. And, I mean, the last time we had an Nynaeve POV, you got the sense that Lan held some degree of respect for Nynaeve, and perhaps even admiration. So I'm a little surprised to hear that. I imagine he would have been more supportive of her learning the Aes Sedai ways, but in another way, I suppose you could view this as him caring for her, suggesting she go back where there would be less danger. She is part of the pattern, Lan, Moraine said chidingly. Her gaze was elsewhere, too. It is the Dark One, Nynaeve. The storm has left us, for a time at least. She raised one hand as though feeling the air, then scrubbed it on her dress unconsciously, as if she had touched filth. He is still watching, however. She sighed, and his gaze is stronger, not on us, but on the world. How much longer before he is strong enough to... Nynaeve hunched her shoulders. Suddenly she could almost feel someone staring at her back. It was one explanation she would just as soon the Aes Sedai had not given her. I also wonder if it is during this segment that both the Tom thing is happening and the Perrin dream thing. Although no, I don't think that's the case, because I think we're still at the start of where they left off the last time. I don't know, it's timey weird right now because of the montage element at play. So it's hard to place when this specific conversation is happening. Lan scouted their path down the river, but where before he had chosen the way, now Moraine did so, as surely as if she followed some unseen track, footprints in the air, the scent of memory. Lan only checked the route she intended to see that it was safe. Nynaeve had the feeling that even if he said it was not, Moraine would insist on it anyway, and he would go, she was sure, straight down the river to... With a start, Nynaeve pulled out of her thoughts. They were at the foot of the White Bridge. Okay, so maybe that did happen then, right at White Bridge. I'm doing a lot of dumb guys this chapter, I guess. The pale arch shone in the sunlight, a milky spiderweb too delicate to stand, sweeping across the Arenal. The weight of a man would bring it crashing down, much less that of a horse. Surely it would collapse under its own weight at any minute. Lan and Moraine rode unconcernedly ahead, up the gleaming white approach and onto the bridge, hooves ringing, not like steel on glass, but like steel on steel. Interesting, considering that they, earlier in the book, Rand had thought of it as glass. The surface of the bridge certainly looked as slick as glass, wet glass, but it gave the horses a firm, sure footing. Well, there you go. Nynaeve made herself follow, but from the first step she half waited for the entire structure to shatter under them. If lace were made of glass, she thought, it would look like this. It sounds beautiful. In a way, she seems to be appreciating the beauty differently than Rand did, which I find interesting. It was not until they were almost all the way across that she noticed the tarry smell of char thickening the air. In a moment she saw. Around the square at the foot of the White Bridge, piles of blackened timbers, still leaking smoky threads replaced half a dozen buildings. Men in poorly fitted red uniforms and tarnished armor patrolled the streets, but they marched quickly as if afraid of finding anything, and they looked over their shoulders as they went. Townspeople, the few who were out, almost ran, shoulders hunched, as though something were chasing them. Okay, so whatever broke out with Tom did not end with Tom alone. It sounds like either a fire started and burnt down that part of the city, or more Myrddraal showed up and purged the area in search, which does not bode well for Tom. Then again, if Trollocs did attack the city, why is anyone left? I didn't get the sense that those folks in the area with the cloaks and what have you were Thades and Trollocs. I got the sense that they were more like the town guard type situation, or construction workers, but more like town guard type thing. Lan looked grim even for him, and people walked wide of the three of them, even the soldiers, although I am getting the sense that their arrival isn't too long after the Tom situation. I can't imagine more than a week. I would guess days, if even that. I might even go so far as to say a day is my guess. The warder sniffed the air and grimaced. Lan looked grim even for him, and people walked wide of the three of them, even the soldiers. The warder sniffed the air and grimaced, growling under his breath. It was no wonder to Nynaeve with the stink of burn so strong. The wheel weaves as the wheel wills, Moraine mumbled. No eye can see the pattern until it is woven. In the next moment, she was down off Aldib and speaking to townsfolk. She did not ask questions, she gave sympathy, and to Nynaeve's surprise, it appeared genuine. That's interesting. That's more credit than she's been willing to give Moraine thus far, and I imagine her sympathy was genuine in Emond's Field on Winter Night as well. People who shied away from Lan, ready to hurry from any stranger, stopped to speak with Moraine. They appeared startled themselves at what they were doing, but they opened up, after a fashion, under Moraine's clear gaze and soothing voice. I wonder how much of this is her using magic. The Aes Sedai's eyes seemed to share the people's hurt, to empathize with their confusion, and tongues loosened. That's gotta be some magic. They still lied, though, most of them. Some denied there had been any trouble at all, nothing at all. Moraine mentioned the burned buildings all around the square. Everything was fine, they insisted, staring past what they did not want to see. One fat fellow spoke with a hollow heartiness, but his cheek twitched at every noise behind them. With a grin that kept slipping, he claimed an overturned lamp had started a fire that spread with the wind before anything could be done. One glance showed Nynaeve that no burned structure stood alongside another. What are the odds all of the burned buildings were burnt inns? There were almost as many different stories as there were people. Several women lowered their voices conspiratorially. The truth of the matter was there was a man somewhere in the town meddling with the One Power. It was time to have the Aes Sedai in. Past time was the way they saw it. No matter what the men said about Tar Valon, let the Red Ajas settle matters. One man claimed it had been an attack by bandits, and another said a riot by Dark Friends. "Those ones going to see the false dragon, you know," he confided darkly. "They're all over the place. Dark Friends, every one." Still others spoke of some kind of trouble. They were vague about exactly what kind, that had come down river on a boat. Okay, so I'm guessing that Gelb's story certainly got out. And that's probably how many of these people can stab guesses at. "We showed them," a narrow-faced man muttered, scrubbing his hands together nervously. "Let them keep that kind of thing in the borderlands where it belongs. We went down to the docks and—" He cut off so abruptly his teeth clicked. Without another word, he scurried off, peering back over his shoulder at them as if he thought they might chase him down. The boat had gotten away. That much was clear, eventually, from others, cutting its moorings and fleeing downriver only the day before while a mob poured onto the docks. Nynaeve wondered if Egwene and the boys had been on board. One woman said that a gleeman had been on the boat. If that had been Tom Merrilin, I hope he's okay. Oh my god, tell me if he's okay, please. Or at least show us the body so I can know. She tried her opinion on Moraine, that some of the Emond's Fielders might have fled on the boat. The Aes Sedai listened patiently, nodding until she was done. "Perhaps," Moraine said then, but she sounded doubtful. An inn still stood in the square, the common room divided in two by a shoulder-high wall. So first off, what are the odds that that's the same exact inn? But also, I guess that counters my earlier supposition that it was only inns that burnt. Moraine paused as she stepped into the inn, feeling the air with her hand. She smiled at whatever it was she felt, but she would say nothing of it then, and I'm guessing that could be feeling that they were in fact there, or maybe even the coins were there at one point. Their meal was consumed in silence. Silence not only at their table, but throughout the common room. The handful of people eating there concentrated on their own plates and their own thoughts. The innkeeper, dusting tables with a corner of his apron, muttered to himself continually, but always too low to be heard. Nynaeve thought it would not be pleasant sleeping there. Even the air was heavy with fear. Understandably so. And also, I think Rand and Matt and Tom had good reason to consider staying in Whitebridge, because it seems to me that they were the ones capable of traveling the fastest. But I think Moraine, Nynaeve, and Lan should, after they've done their investigating, continue on to Caemlyn quickly. It would be very strange for them to think that they should wait at Whitebridge for the others to show up. Not that I think they will, just that they shouldn't. About the time they pushed their plates away, wiped clean with the last scraps of bread, one of the red-uniformed soldiers appeared in the doorway. He seemed resplendent in the nave, in his peaked helmet and burnished breastplate, until he took a pose just inside the door, with a hand resting on the hilt of his sword and a stern look on his face, and used a finger to ease his too tight collar. It made her think of Sen Bui trying to act the way a village councillor should. Lan spared him one glance and snorted. Militia. Useless. So mean. I have not forgiven Lan for his comment about the militia at Emmons Field. At least he's willing to try. The soldier looked over the room, letting his eyes come to rest on them. He hesitated, then took a deep breath before stomping over to demand, all in a rush, who they were, what their business was in Whitebridge, and how long they intended to stay. We are leaving as soon as I finish my ale, Lan said. He took another slow swallow before looking up at the soldier. The light illumine good Queen Morghese. Okay, so I guess these soldiers were sent from Camelin, perhaps? Which would highly suggest that... No, if it's a militia, it's likely people of the town. I was going to say that would suggest that Matt and Rand probably passed them on the road to Camelin, but no. I think this is a Whitebridge person, and I think Whitebridge is under Queen Morghese's rule. The red-uniformed man opened his mouth, then took a good look at Lan's eyes and stepped back. He caught himself immediately with a glance at Moraine and her. She thought for a moment that he was going to do something foolish to keep from looking the coward in front of two women. In her experience, men were often idiots that way. Rude, but too much had happened in Whitebridge. Too much uncertainty had escaped from the cellars of men's minds. The militiaman looked back at Lan and reconsidered once more. The warder's hard-planed face was expressionless, but there were those cold blue eyes, so cold. The militiaman settled on a brisk nod. See that you do. Too many strangers around these days for the good of the Queen's peace. Turning on his heel, he stomped out again, practicing his stern look on the way. None of the locals in the inn seemed to notice. Where are we going? Nynaeve demanded of the warder. The mood in the room was such that she kept her voice low, but she made sure it was firm, too. After the boat? No, go to Camelin. Lan looked at Moraine, who shook her head slightly, and said, First I must find the one I can be sure of finding, and at present he is somewhere to the north of us. I do not think the other two went with the boat in any case. A small, satisfied smile touched her lips. They were in this room, perhaps a day ago, no more than 2. Afraid, but they left alive. The trace would not have lasted without that strong emotion. Okay, so that's cool, and it sounds like she has decided to go after Perrin now, which is interesting. They get confirmation that the two are alive. No word on Tom yet, and I'm getting the sense we probably won't in this chapter then, thus far in. Which two? Nynaeve leaned over the table intently. Do you know? Yeah, I'm curious to know if you know. The Aes Sedai shook her head, the slightest of emotions, and Nynaeve settled back. If they're only a day or two ahead, why don't we go after them first? Yeah, because I thought, Perrin, you're just always going to be able to follow half the world away. Why give up on how far you've come? I know they were here, Moraine said in that insufferably calm voice, but beyond that I cannot say if they went east or north or south. I trust they are smart enough to have gone east toward Camelin, but I do not know, and lacking their tokens, I will not know where they are until I am perhaps within half a mile. So that does mean that Matt did not get his token back either. And again, I feel like this moment would have been more impactful had we not had that one line in the previous Rand chapter where he notes that he didn't get the token back. He just somehow instinctually knew. In 2 days they could have gone 20 miles or 40 in any direction if fear urged them, and they were certainly afraid when they left here. But wisdom, however fearful they were, in whatever direction they ran, eventually they will remember Camelin, and it is there I will find them. But I will help the one I can find now first. Again, I feel like what happens if it takes you longer than you anticipate to get to Perrin, or there's more difficulty in that direction, and Rand and Matt make it to Camelin, that surely they aren't just gonna stay there. And then what? I think this is a bad choice, Moraine. Or not the most optimal choice. Nynaeve opened her mouth again, but Lan cut her off in a soft voice. Oh, but this could end up being a point where the 3 of them part ways, or she parts ways from the 2 of them, rather. Anyway, they had reason to be afraid. He looked around, then lowered his voice. There was a half-man here. He grimaced the way he had in the square. I can still smell him everywhere. Moraine sighed. I will keep hope until I know it is gone. I refuse to believe the Dark One can win so easily. I will find all three of them alive and well. I must believe it. I want to find the boys too, Nynaeve said. But what about Egwene? You never even mention her, and you ignore me when I ask. I thought you were going to take her off to... She glanced at the other tables and lowered her voice. To Tar Valon. The Aes Sedai studied the tabletop for a moment before raising her eyes to Nynaeve's, and when she did, Nynaeve started back from a flash of anger that almost seemed to make Moraine's eyes glow. Then her back stiffened, her own anger rising, but before she could say a word, the Aes Sedai spoke coldly. Oh shit. She finally got Moraine mad. I hope to find Egwene alive and well, too. I do not easily give up young women with that much ability once I have found them, but it will be as the wheel weaves. Nynaeve felt a cold ball in the pit of her stomach. Am I one of those young women you won't give up? We'll see about that, Aes Sedai. The light burn you, we'll see about that. The meal was finished in silence, and it was a silent three who rode through the gates and down the Camelin Road. Moraine's eyes searched the horizon to the northeast. Behind them, the smoke-stained town of Whitebridge cowered. No mention of Tom, damn it. Okay. I really like the Nynaeve dynamic here, the adversarial relationship she has with Moraine and Lan. That's really interesting to me. Again, I think that Moraine is making the less than optimal decision, particularly if they're taking the road to Camelin regardless. And if she is able to track Perrin, surely she is able to recognize that Perrin is on his way toward Camelin, roughly in that direction. Even if at first he was heading in the wrong direction, surely by now they are still heading toward Camelin, and she should be able to recognize that. I don't know. Anyway, I think that's all I got for now. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time. Okay, thanks, bye.